My name is Brown. I'm the facilitator for this meeting, and Louise Betancourt is here as my co-facilitator. Our role is to help ensure today's meeting is informative and productive. The purpose of the meeting, petitioner, Mr. Gunter of Beyond Nuclear, to address the Petition Review Board for the petition on potentially defective safety-related components and quality assurance documentation with anomalies supplied by Areva, the Creusot Forge, and Japan Casting and Forging Company Corporation. Our agenda for this meeting is as follows: welcome and introductions, followed by the PRB chair section, the petitioner's presentation, followed by questions and closing remarks. The meeting is scheduled from 10 a.m. to noon Eastern Time. It's being recorded by the NRC operations and will be transcribed by a court reporter. The transcript will become a supplement to the petition, and the transcript will also be made publicly available. Prior to placing the transcript in Adams, the PRB will review it to ensure it does not contain any allegations or sensitive information. To get a good transcript and to minimize distraction, we ask that you turn off or mute any device that rings, buzzes, beeps, or alarms. For those of you dialing into the meeting, please remember to mute your phones. If you don't have a mute button, this can be done by pressing *6 and then to unmute if you wish to speak. When we have that section of the meeting, just press the *6 key again. I'd like to emphasize that we need each individual to speak clearly and loudly to make sure that the court reporter can accurately describe this meeting.
You are now muted.
To actually transcribe this meeting. If you do have something that you want to say, please first state your name for the record. We also ask that you minimize any side conversations during the meeting. We'll try to have only one speaker at a time. Before we move on to introductions, I want to point out the exits and the restrooms. So the exit is here behind me. The restrooms are across the hall. For our guests here today, if you need to use the restroom, please let an NRC staff member know so that we can escort you. And if in the unfortunate event we have to evacuate the building, please be sure that you have one of us as an escort. There is a limit of 5 guests to 1 escort. Now I'd like to have the NRC meeting participants introduce themselves. I ask that all of the participants clearly state for the record your name, your position, and your organization. For those here in the room, please speak up so that those on the phone can hear clearly and so that the court reporter can accurately record your name. I'll start with myself and the other NRC participants here in the room. I'm Chris Brown. I'm a Senior Program Manager in the Office of the Chief Financial Officer.
Well, good morning. My name is Louise Betancourt. I'm going to be your
And I'm the agency petition coordinator and the petition manager for this petition. I work in NRR.
My name is Paul Gunter. I'm Director of Reactor Oversight Project at Beyond Nuclear, and I'm the petitioner along with our co-petitioners.
Doug Broadus. I'm the Chief of the Special Projects and Process Branch and the Division of Operating Reactor Licensing at NRR.
I'm Ann Bolin. I'm the petition PRB chair, and I'm currently acting as the Deputy Office Director for the Office of Regulatory Research.
Chris O'Bannon, Senior Division of Engineering.
I'm Paul Klein, a Senior Materials Engineer in the Division of Engineering.
Yeah, Kirkland, OGP. Ashley Ferguson,
Senior Reactor Operations Engineer, Quality and Vendor Relations in NRO.
Sarah Bernal-Taylor, I'm an allegation specialist in the headquarters allegations.
Steve France from Morgan Hills. Dave McIntyre from NRC Public Affairs. Robin Dow from Electric Power Research Institute. Mike Street.
Karen Heinolf.
Okay. We've completed introductions here in the room. Are there any NRC participants from headquarters on the phone?
Yeah, this is Russ Origi, Office of Enforcement, petition member. Mark King, Operating Experience Branch in RR.
Dory Willis, Allegations in the Office of Enforcement.
Do we have any NRC participants from a regional office on the phone? we had an individual join us here in the room. Would you like to introduce yourself to the folks that are here as well as on the call?
Sure, my name is David Mitchell. I'm just here from the public.
Okay. Thank you. We know that the court reporter is on the line and recording. So in view of the number of licensees on the phone, instead of each of you introducing yourselves now, I'd like each of you to email your name, position, and organization. And the same goes for the public. It's not required for members of the public to introduce themselves, but if there are any on the phone that wish to do so, please email your name, position, and organization to the petition manager at marileebannock@nrc.gov. And that's the same address that is in the meeting notice that's published on the public site.
Are we able to listen to who's on from the co-petitioners?
So I believe that we can. We have the ability to do a roll call, but I have to look into that.
Hello?
Yes, hello.
Yes, this is Erica Gray in Richmond, Virginia. I am one of the co-petitioners. So yes, I would I'd like to be able to speak since I'm one of the petitioners.
Right. So actually, I was just getting to that. So Mr. Gunter has already introduced himself, and I'd ask you that you also introduce anyone else who's participating in the petition today.
Well, we received a request from Erica Gray in Virginia for the North Anna units. But if there are other members of our co-petition that have, we'd like to leave it open for them to provide some comments within our hour and 15 minutes. Right?
Okay.
We get an hour and 15?
Yes, that's right.
So in the past proceedings, all the co-petitioners have at least had an opportunity within the allotted time to make germane comments relative to supplementing this petition. I just make a request.
Can you hear me? This is John Margolin with Neil Gross Court Reporters.
Yes?
This is Dave Love from Westinghouse Electric.
Thank you.
I take it the conference has not begun yet?
Actually, gentlemen, the conference has begun. You actually called in on the regular 2206 phone number, and there was an email that was sent out with a different number.
Okay.
Give me just a second, and I can read it out loud to you.
Okay, thank you.
So to be clear, do you know who is speaking?
Erica Gray has expressed an interest.
Okay, for those of you who are on the call, can you hear me okay?
The other co-petitioners, I'm just wondering if you have an opportunity to make some remarks
553
at the appropriate time.
They do.
7601. And you'll need
perhaps if they wish to make a comment, could they be allowed to raise that right now? I know Erica has asked to make a comment. If any of them wish to make a comment, could they state so right now?
553
Actually, we just list their name and they are right now.
Okay, Erica Gray who has done that in advance.
Right. Anybody else?
Not in advance.
Okay. I'm going to pass this off to Allegra, who's going to call in, and she'll be
yeah.
She had dropped out earlier and alerted me to this, so I will have her on shortly.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I'm leaving the line now and going to get her.
Okay, thank you.
So are we all set on the bridge line and the court reporter?
Hope so.
Okay, good.
Pardon me, are the co-petitioners simply identifying themselves now?
So we've asked Mr. Gunter to introduce...
Is this call going on? I can't hear anything.
You actually need to call into the correct phone number because they actually use a different bridge. Do you have a pen handy?
Yes.
Okay, it's 877 553 7601.
Okay.
And the conference code, the security code to get in, 508 7356.
Okay, thanks. It was working at first, and then it cut out.
Yeah, we noticed that here too. So I'm sorry that you have to call back in, but I think that's going to be the best way to get you into it.
Okay, thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
I have a similar question. I just called in on the 2206 security and was given the 877-553-7601 with passcode 5087356, and it brought me back here.
Okay, so I'm going to let that resolve itself. As you go through the petition, I ask that the people who are going to...
You are no longer muted.
For them to introduce themselves so that the court reporter is able to capture their name at that time.
Yeah.
All right. Before we begin, I'd like to share some general background information on our process. Section 2.206 of Title 10 of the Code of Federal Regulations describes the petition process, the primary mechanism for the public to request enforcement action by the NRC in a public process. This process permits anyone to petition the NRC to take enforcement action related to NRC licensees or licensed activities. Depending on the result of its evaluation, the NRC could modify, suspend, or revoke an NRC-issued license to take any other appropriate enforcement action to resolve a problem. The NRC's staff's guidance for the disposition of the 2.206 petition request is in Management Directive 8.11, which is publicly available. The purpose of today's meeting is to give the petitioner an opportunity to provide any additional explanation or support for the petition before the Petition Review Board's initial consideration and recommendation. The meeting is not a hearing, nor is it an opportunity for the petitioner to question or examine the PRB on the merits or the issues presented in the petition request. No decisions regarding the merits of this petition will be made at this meeting. Following this meeting, the Petition Review Board will conduct its internal deliberations. The outcome of this internal meeting will be discussed with the petitioner. The Petition Review Board typically consists of a chairman, usually a manager at the senior executive service level at the NRC, has a petition manager, and a PRB coordinator. Other members of the board are determined by the NRC staff based on the content of the information in the petition request and the members of our themselves. As described in our process, the NRC staff may ask clarifying questions to better understand the petitioner's presentation and to reach a reasoned decision whether to accept or reject a petitioner's request for review under the 2.206 process. Also, as described in our process, the licensees have been invited to participate in today's meeting to ensure that they understand the concerns about their facility or activities. While the licensees may also ask questions to clarify the issues raised by the petitioner, I want to stress that the licensees are not part of the PRB's decision-making process. Licensees will have an opportunity to ask the petitioner questions after his presentation. I'd like to now turn the meeting over to Ann Bolin, Chair of the Board, who will discuss a specific petition under consideration.
Okay, thank you, Chris, and welcome. Thank you for exercising this part of our regulatory process. I guess I'd just like to summarize for you and those who may not be as familiar. On January 24th, you and your co-petitioners requested that the NRC take enforcement action in accordance with 10 CFR 2.206 at U.S. reactors that are currently relying on potentially defective safety-related components and quality assurance documentations with anomalies supplied by Arriva, Le Creusot Forge, and its subcontractor, Japan Casting and Forging Corporation. You requested to suspend power operations of U.S. nuclear power plants relying on Le Creusot Forge components and Le Creusot subcontractors pending both full inspection and material testing. With the finding of carbon anomalies in excess of the design basis specifications for at-risk component parts, you, the petitioners, requested further action. On February the 2nd, the petition manager, Ms. Bannock, offered you an opportunity to address the PRB prior to its internal meeting to make an initial recommendation regarding whether to accept or reject the petition for review. On February 3rd, you accepted that offer, and therefore we're here today at today's meeting. On February 8th, the PRB met initially to consider your request for immediate enforcement action. The PRB's decision was not to take immediate action, and we would seek to get additional information from you at this meeting. You were informed of that decision on February 13th by Ms. Bannock. On March the 6th, you and your co-petitioner supplemented the petition by email and stated that you would refer to those supplements during this meeting. So we do have that information available, so if there's specific things you want to cite, we'll be able to capture that. Also, as a reminder for the phone participants, please identify yourself as you make any remarks, and Mr. Gunter will tee up those discussions as part of the petitioner's presentation time. And since this is a public meeting, I would like to remind the PRB members, the licensees, the petitioners, and other meeting participants of the need to refrain from discussing NRC-sensitive or proprietary information during today's meeting. So with that, unless Chris has anything to offer or Ms. Bannock, we would turn it over to you for approximately 1 hour and 15 minutes.
Okay, well, thank you. I would like to first express my appreciation to the staff of the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission for its December 30th, 2016 decision to deny AREVA's December 15th, 2016 requests to withhold from public disclosure the U.S. reactors and their potentially at-risk safety-related components that make up the all-important pressure-coolant boundary for these reactors during their operation. AREVA had sought to make the list of U.S. reactors a business secret and had requested non-disclosure. But again, we appreciate that the NRC denied that, given that putting the public at any unmeasured risk is unacceptable. And that's essentially what we're here today to seek to have this risk analyzed as is going on overseas. And as such, we are looking for the NRC to similarly exercise good regulatory practice in placing public health and safety first, and that's your mandate as dictated. Those 17 units that are now publicly identified are Arkansas Nuclear Unit 1, Beaver Valley Unit 1, and again, Arkansas is in Arkansas, Beaver Valley is in Pennsylvania, Comanche Peak Unit 1 in Texas, Farley 1 and 2 in Alabama, Millstone Unit 2 in Connecticut, North Anna Units 1 and 2 in Virginia, Prairie Island 1 and 2 in Minnesota, Sequoia Unit in Tennessee, South Texas 1 and 2 in Texas, Surrey Unit 1 in Virginia, St. Lucie 1 in Florida, and VC Summer in South Carolina, and Watts Bar Unit 1 in Tennessee. The petitioners have filed an emergency enforcement petition under Chapter 10 of the Code of Federal Regulation, Part 2.206, in request that the U.S. Nuclear Safety Agency engage the same level of inspection and material and testing of U.S. reactors with at-risk components with the same urgency as France and other European reactors are approaching this crisis of confidence in safety margins. Until material testing is conducted here in the United States, the NRC, and more importantly, the communities living near these impacted nuclear reactors will not know the risks these reactors pose. The petitioners have requested the meeting today with the Petition Review Board to supplement their petition for the requested emergency enforcement action. The petitioners largely rely on the expert opinion and documentation provided by John Large, with Large Associates in their report entitled Irregularities and Anomalies Relating to the Forged Components of Le Creusot Forge, dated September 26, 2016, as it was prepared for Greenpeace France. In a brief recap, in 2014, the French nuclear design and manufacturing company AREVA notified the French nuclear safety regulator, ASN, of results of material tests that had been carried out upon a component manufactured at the Le Creusot Forge in France. These tests were undertaken by AREVA as part of a qualification technique of components for the European Pressurized Reactor, EPR, under construction in Flamanville, Unit 3 nuclear power plant. The AREVA test results revealed that the material characteristics of Crusoe forged components for the reactor pressure vessel did not conform for the fracture toughness design basis specification, result of anomalies developed during the manufacturing process. The large associated report describes the forging process as it pertains to these anomalies. In brief, following the pouring of low-carbon ferritic steel, the ingot is allowed to slowly cool from the melting temperature at about 1540 degrees centigrade, thereby undergoing solidification of the carbon alloy. During the solidification process, the solute is partitioned between the solid and liquid molten phases to either deplete or enrich the dendritic or branching tree-like crystal structure regions. The process, the progress of the mushy solid liquid phase varies within the body of the ingot, and particularly the localized rate of leading to microsegregation variations in the composition of the alloy. Variations in the ingot cooling rate lead to diverse microsegregation regimes being generated in different parts of the body of the ingot. In a low-carbon steel alloy, this microsegregation results in enhanced and depleted zones of carbon, the segregates. That is a loss of homogeneity. At the microscale, inconsistencies in the chemical and physical makeup of the alloy, all resulting in variation in the chemical and physical material properties of the final steel component. Where the segregates are enhanced over the intended level, i.e. the carbon content is richer, the microsegregation is referred to as, quote, positive. Almost all microsegregation is undesirable for the first stage ingot manufacturing in the overall forging route because unless the affected zones are cropped and discarded from the ingot prior to the final forging machining process, the variations remain in the body of the finished component. These chemical inconsistencies introduced by microsegregation can deliver different microstructures and hence inconsistencies in the mechanical properties of the steel. The inclusion of segregates in finished forged components, even in minute quantities, may also lead to the formation of crack-type defects in conjunction with the application of weld-deposited cladding. The early stage of the forging process at Crusoe, like all other forges, includes cropping and discarding potential sections of the ingot to remove the top and bottom microsegregation zone. The opportunity to intervene in the forging process to control and limit microsegregation is during the casting, cooling, and separately the blooming and discarding stages. Once these process stages have passed, any microsegregation zone remains captured and is progressively worked into the developing forged component shape. AREVA now admits that the Crusoe manufacturing route was flawed. Subsequent test findings showed an increased carbon content across a large zone area of the equivalent of each of the upper and lower head shells that were already incorporated into the Unit 3 reactor pressure vessel. The excessive carbon contamination was indicated as present throughout much of the thickness of the equivalent vessel head shell. This particular carbon anomaly, or carbon macrosegregation, is identified as an unacceptable weakness in the steel alloy, potentially resulting in rapid tearing and potential catastrophic failure under operational and accidental conditions. I'd like to quote John Large, who states, in the macrosegregation zones of excess carbon, of the resistance of the steel to tearing and cracking is lowered, rendering forged components vulnerable to abrupt and catastrophic failure via rapid crack propagation and fast fracture. The fracture toughness is particularly important characteristic of the through-life components of the nuclear primary pressure circuit, for which, quote, break preclusion, i.e. no opportunity for catastrophic failure, is an absolute prerequisite of the design basis and nuclear safety case. The sourcing of these suspect at-risk components goes beyond Crusoe Forge to include steam generator components manufactured at Japan Casting and Forging Company and possibly Japan Steelworks, which widens the international dimension and crisis of confidence in safety margins for these nuclear power stations. Large Associates reports that following a number of in-situ inspections of the JCFC-sourced steam generator manifolds, bottom heads, ASN announced that, quote, JCFC channel heads first measured tend to show higher carbon percentage than 0.30%, thereby raising doubts about the toughness characteristic of JCFC-sourced components in particular. The higher the concentration of carbon impurity in steel, the weaker the component. France's single nuclear power plant operator, Électricité de France SA, or EDF, was required to evaluate the nuclear safety of its operational reactors on a case-by-case basis. It was further revealed that the quality assurance and component conformity was unsatisfactory not only for the manufacturing route for these components, had never been subjected to the quality techniques, and thus had not obtained a certificate of conformity, but also that these uncertain components that had been manufactured as far back as 1965. ASN has generally coined these uncertainties as irregularities, and ASN defines such irregularities as compromised inconsistencies, modifications, or omissions in the production files concerning manufacturing parameters and test results. The petitioners remain concerned that if U.S. nuclear power stations continue to operate without thorough inspections and material testing of these at-risk components, then the public is being exposed to unidentified measure of increased and undue risk from a potential accident arising from the failure of installed suspect and at-risk components. The petitioners have requested that the NRC responsibly address this undue risk through the requested enhanced inspections and material testing of at-risk components at U.S. reactors. Specifically to the U.S. situation, in response to the growing Areva-Crusoe controversy overseas, David McIntyre with the NRC Office of Public Affairs has stated, quote, a primary review by NRC inspectors indicated that Areva had made a responsible assessment supporting no nuclear safety concerns, unquote. Mr. McIntyre in press accounts that followed further stated that NRC confidence is based on the U.S. material qualification process, the preliminary structural evaluations of reactor components under scrutiny in France, and U.S. material aging management programs, our participation in a multinational inspection of Crusoe Forge, and information supplied by Areva about the documentation anomalies. However, It is the petitioner's understanding, again, according to large associates expert evaluation and investigation into the Crusoe Forge technical issues in France, United Kingdom, and other European countries that, and I quote, the presence and extent of a microsegregation zone can only be fully detected, mapped, and examined by destructive means. So any potential defects have to be deduced via inference testing of, one, a test ring taken from the surplus edges of the component and or by destructively examining. Two, a supernumerary or equivalent replica forging that has followed through the same manufacturing route as the Flamanville 3 component. The petitioners assert that just as the European nuclear safety agencies have required inspections and testing on a case-by-case basis, the NRC should similarly undertake an urgent examination and material testing of U.S. units with affected components. If not now, as the board has decided to deny, we're requesting at the next scheduled reactor outage, which is part of our petition. Beyond Nuclear and the co-petitioners further supplement their emergency enforcement petition by identifying an apparent irregularity in AREVA communications to the NRC, specific to its record keeping of U.S. reactors affected by at-risk Crusoe Forge components. Again, ASN has defined such irregularities to, quote, comprise of inconsistencies, modifications, or omissions in the production files concerning manufacturing parameters and test results. The broad range of definition covers AREVA Crusoe manufacturing route, material defects, dubious record keeping, and mismanagement. The U.S. NRC sent a November 30th, 2016 email to AREVA entitled NRC Request for Documentation Associated with U.S. Components Manufactured at Crusoe Forge. AREVA initially responded, dated December 15, 2016, in AREVA's Attachment A entitled Crusoe Forge Forgings in U.S. Components, identified the aforementioned 17 reactor units in the United States, including units with their components awaiting installation. AREVA identified in its December 15 response that these units have a total of 127 at-risk forges comprising reactor pressure vessels, replacement vessel heads, steam generator components, and pressurizer components as a result of Crusoe Forge manufacturing chain for its U.S. customers. AREVA then provided a second response to the list of at-risk components, which was substantially revised upward in a February 3, 2017 attachment that enumerated 164 components for the 17 units. The petitioners note that AREVA's February 3, 2017 response to the NRC request for documentation states, and I quote, in reference 1, AREVA Inc., AREVA provided an Attachment A which listed U.S. nuclear power plants that ordered components fabricated with forges from Crusoe Forge, CF. In reference 2, AREVA noted that the Attachment A list outlined components that were ordered by the actual number of forgings used used may need to be updated by the prime contractor. Areva has recently received information, attachment B, from the prime contractor and has incorporated it in revision 1, attachment A, in this letter, February 3rd, 2017. No other revisions to attachment A are anticipated in the future. Subsequent to Areva's February 2017 revised response to the NRC, the petitioners read a news account published by the Times Online in Pennsylvania, dated February 15, 2017, headlined, "Groups Calling for Shutdown of Beaver Valley Nuclear Plant." Petitioners have provided a copy of that news article to the board as a supplement to the petition. As you'll read, the news story states, quote, First Energy spokeswoman Jennifer Young confirmed Wednesday that Beaver Valley Unit 1 does have parts that were manufactured at the Areva facility in France. Those parts are located in the replacement reactor head and steam generators at Beaver Valley. In addition, Nuclear Regulatory Commission spokesman Neil Sheehan confirmed that Unit 2 at Beaver Valley has components made at the forge, but First Energy has decided to delay their installation for at least a few years. So contrary to Areva's assertion in its February 3rd, 2017 response to the NRC request for information, Beaver Valley Unit 2 is revealed to have Crusoe Forge replacement components for the reactor pressure vessel head and steam generators as confirmed by NRC Region 1 Office of Public Affairs. However, Beaver Valley Unit 2 and those components are not listed in either of Areva's responses to the NRC request for information. Inclusion of Beaver Valley Unit 2 brings the total of impacted U.S. reactors to 18 units, not 17. The petitioners contend that Areva's apparent failure to accurately capture the factual record of Crusoe Forge replacement pressure vessels and steam generator components to First Energy's Beaver Valley Unit 2 constitutes an egregious irregularity. If this is correct, it is unacceptable in terms of nuclear safety and public confidence in the safety margins relating to these anomalies. And again, I just go back to the fact that the responses had identified that these were orders and not necessarily just those units that were that had installed. So we submit that these are significant irregularities where again Areva apparently has lost track count of the number of forged components from Crusoe as supplied to U.S. reactors, and also failed to provide an accurate record to the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission on request. The petitioners additionally supplement the emergency enforcement action request by a copy of the February 21st, 2017 email from Paul Gunter with Beyond Nuclear to Neil Sheehan, NRC Region 1 Office of Public Affairs, on how the NRC will deposition Areva's incomplete record keeping for Crusoe Forge components at U.S. nuclear power stations. Mr. Sheehan provided in the email thread, which you have a copy of, to read, I will confer with staff on these questions and get back to you, unquote. The petitioners are still waiting for the Region 1 response to that email. I think, though, given the an apparent irregularity by Areva's omission in two responses to the NRC request for information on Crusoe Forge components in U.S. nuclear reactors, the petitioners assert that their action request for the issuance of confirmatory licensee responses under 10 CFR 54F is justified all the more to rule out the discovery of any additional irregularities of reporting of Crusoe Forge or Japan Casting and Forge Corporation at-risk components. In closing, the petitioners wish to point out that we have Freedom of Information Act, FOIA PA 2017-00208 on request. We've provided you with, in supplement with the acknowledgement letter from the NRC FOIA Division in request of all relevant NRC communications and documentation that regards the tracking of AREVA Crusoe Forge components of U.S. reactors. The petitioners hereby request that the Petition Review Board delay its draft decision until after the agency completes release of documents requested by Beyond Nuclear and allow the petitioners some reasonable time to review the documents provided and released under the FOIA. The petitioners take this opportunity to request that the Petition Review Board provide them with an additional public meeting under Management Directive 8.11 review process for 10 CFR 2.206 petitions so that we may incorporate any additional findings provided by the FOIA and any further developments and judgments from ongoing investigations from overseas that potentially impact U.S. reactor operations. One last request is that the petitioners request that the Petition Review Board meeting be afforded an opportunity for further transparency through live stream and archived webcasts, as has been the custom of the agency in previous public meetings under 10 CFR 2.206, which we've participated in. These are clearly available on the NRC web archive. The petitioners assert that this particular practice would be appropriate for reactor safety issues of an international scope. So I'll take this opportunity to thank you again for this opportunity to address the Petition Review Board and your help in building a public record on this matter of public health and safety.
So is there anybody else from your organization or as part of the petition that wants to speak now?
I believe that Erica Gray from Virginia would like to offer some remarks.
Hey, Erica?
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, hi, my name's Erica Gray. I'm a volunteer with the Sierra Club, the Richmond, Virginia chapter, and I follow the issues relating to North Anna and Surrey plants. And I am also one of the petitioners. As it goes to the background, sounds like Paul Gunter has covered some of the issues concerning what's happened in the background of the French nuclear safety regulator that basically asked the courts to step in to investigate after AREVA sounded the alarm over document irregularities, but it involved 6,000 nuclear component manufacturing files. And then the NRC update on quality insurance issues in France, just the first of this year, the NRC informed the public that AREVA had released documentation on December 15th about the 17 reactors. Of course, now it's really 18. And then, of course, on December the 30th, the NRC informed AREVA that they would make it public. But I also wanted to state that, this investigation is ongoing. AREVA expects to complete its records review by June. And for the NRC to state that they will independently examine the information in determining what document anomalies exist, as well as any anomalies of significance, is not sufficient. This is an ongoing probe, not only that includes potentially defective parts, but also the falsifying of quality assurance documents, possibly for decades. Reviewing documents that might be falsified does not protect public health and safety. That is why we, the petitioners, are asking for a shutdown to do actual testing. In previous NRC meetings regarding subsequent license renewal, an NRC staff member noted that, how will all the amendments and exemptions, et cetera, that from the original plant criteria be accounted for? It's a daunting task. I mention this because what's also needed now is a complete detailing of the inspections done at all of these at-risk plants on these in-question components be done and made publicly available. In 2002, the NRC recognized issues regarding primary water stress corrosion cracking, which led Dominion to fast-track replacement of all 4 reactor pressure vessel heads because of extensive cracking was found. But trying to locate important documents on the NRC website is no easy task. In 2002, Dominion recognized the potential safety significance for pressure water stress corrosion cracking in reactor vessel head penetrations and the ensuing potential for corrosion of the head. And the NRC stated they believe 100% of bare metal visual inspection of reactor pressure heads every refueling outage provided an adequate early indication of the onset of early PWSCC-initiated leakage. But by 2017, seems guidances have changed. 100% is not required. An examination of RPV head penetration once every 10 effective full power years is not sufficient nor wise. The Fukushima nuclear disaster could have been prevented. Critical backup generators were built in low-lying areas at risk for tsunami, despite warnings from scientists. This disaster has been described as a cascade of industrial, regulatory, and engineering failures. This Saturday, March the 11th, 2017, marks 6 years of the Fukushima disaster. In a recent statement from Nachiro Masuda, the chief decommissioning officer there in Japan, said on Wednesday that the operator has yet to locate the melted fuel and where it has gone. The NRC must do its job and do real testing, preferably sooner than later. It's simply not worth the risk. Thank you.
May I ask right now if any of the other co-petitioners would like to offer comments? Yes. Thank you.
This is Alan Muller. Am I being heard?
Yes, you are.
Thank you. Again, my name is Alan Muller. I'm the Executive Director of Green Delaware, and I am primarily concerned with the Salem 1 and 2 reactors in New Jersey and the Prairie Island 1 and 2 reactors in Minnesota. And we have received some conflicting information about whether Salem 1 and 2 may contain questionable AREVA components. And in view of the increase in the list of recognized reactors with Beaver Valley number 2, I feel even more motivated to seek some clarification of that. Is the NRC in possession of what it regards as adequate information regarding the status of the New Salem reactors and AREVA components? That's a question.
Alan, I just want to, step in because the Petition Review Board, as outlined at the beginning, isn't going to be answering any questions here, but I can say that we would expect that such questions would be addressed in the director's decision to follow.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. Well, if the question is not admissible at this time, let me just make it
I think, again, just for clarification, the question's admissible. It's just not going to get answered until they submit a draft director's decision. So it'll come in writing, is what we anticipate.
Well, it appears that the owners and operators of the Salem reactors, PSEG, have employed AREVA for outage services, and that in general AREVA has a substantial involvement in the operation of those reactors, which to me makes it important to have reliable information on this point, particularly given the rather troubled history of Salem 1 and Salem 2.
So if I could just intercede, I think that Alan's, he underscores our joint concern, as has been submitted in the petition, for the NRC to take action under 10 CFR 5054F. And I think that is precisely why we're seeking this as part of an emergency enforcement action, so that we can all have some confidence that these anomalies are being captured under oath and affirmation.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
Yeah, so now would be the opportunity for any of the other co-petitioners to identify yourself, to speak.
This is Tim Judson, the Executive Director at the Nuclear Information and Resource Service for one of the co-petitioners. And I'll be brief. There are a few moments in which, there's really a test upon NRC of its credibility as a nuclear safety regulator. And, we saw, one of those most recently, or, most directly with the NRC's response to the Fukushima nuclear disaster. And, we're now approaching 6 years after that fateful event, and, still, almost no meaningful, regulatory improvements have been instituted throughout the industry, as lessons learned from the Fukushima accident. And some of the initial recommendations were of course, quickly, watered down or exempted, or overruled by the Commission. Here we have a case in which, we know that potentially dozens of reactors across the country, all of which are aging, may have had for much of their lives, and may continue to have now, defective components that wouldn't have met the quality assurance criteria under which they're licensed and regulated. And I think we see across the pond over in France, where where these parts were manufactured and were installed in reactors there, that French regulators, whatever you can say about the French regulatory system, have actually taken steps to shut down reactors and do inspections and provide some assurance to the public that safety standards are being looked after and maintained. And in the U.S., what we seem to be getting from the NRC consistently on these issues is is, a refusal to even provide the basic information about which reactors are affected and which components are at issue. And, that really, obviously undermines public confidence in the, in the NRC's protection of public health and safety. But we have a really, sort of concrete issue with the fact that these reactors are aging reactors. And most of the ones at issue are reactors that were relicensed by the NRC within the last, 10 to 20 years, to operate for an extra 20 years beyond their original design life, on the premise that the operators have, aging management programs that are able to detect safety problems, with aging components. And if in fact, these reactors are riddled with components that were manufactured defectively, and with materials that are apt, that were apt to be prone to failure, in their original condition, never mind, an aged and embrittled condition, we need to have, greater assurances that in fact the NRC is going to ascertain the material condition of these plants that were relicensed under these conditions. And so, we would really urge the NRC, in particular in this case, to take the extra steps and to do what regulators in France have done, and to make sure that we don't have taking time bombs operating across the country. Thanks very much.
Are there any other petitioners on the call that wish to speak?
Yes, this is Alan Muller again. I appreciate the comments made by the person who just spoke and would like to echo them. If one compares the response of the French regulatory apparatus with the response of the NRC, on the face of things, it appears that these concerns are being taken less seriously in the United States than they are in France. And it appears to me that the position that's essentially being taken by the NRC is that the existing procedures for quality assurance and quality control in nuclear components will have or would have captured the sort of metallurgical defects that we're talking about here. And I lack confidence in that, and I think our members lack confidence in that. We have a concern, and this is said with all due respect to the NRC staff, who I recognize that you're all doing what you've been told to do. But it appears that there is a mechanism of regulatory capture happening here, or at least the appearance of regulatory capture. And I think that there's an urgent need for the NRC to take the concerns reflected in the petition more seriously and to act on them in an affirmative way. And I hope you can do that. Thank you.
Are there any other petitioners that wish to speak?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Nancy Burton. I'm director of the Connecticut Coalition Against Millstone. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I will be very brief and adopt the comments of those who have preceded me with this addition. With regard to Millstone Unit 2, I believe it's heading into its rescheduled refueling outage next month as it is entering its 42nd year of operation, and I believe record-setting operation in terms of unplanned scrams, unplanned outages, which, as you know, subject the reactor to extraordinary changes in temperature and pressure. And so, speaking for the coalition, and I know speaking for many people here in Connecticut and the region, we would look forward to a very, very transparent process during this upcoming outage in terms of an actual, destructive as it needs to be, examination of the pressurizer that Arriva identified as having been manufactured at the forge in France, so that that is to say, as transparent as possible, so that we can have confidence that the inspection that needs to be carried out is at least as comprehensive as has been done elsewhere over these issues. Thank you very much.
Are there any other petitioners that wish to speak?
My name is George Crocker. I'm the executive director of the North American Water Office in Minnesota. We are in full support of the comments of previous petitioners, and would just like to add that it would be truly remarkable if we find ourselves in a situation once again where society is forced to react to an occurrence because of the dereliction of duty by those who are sworn to protect public safety at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. So I would urge you, NRC, to follow the direction of petitioners, and let's not end up reacting to another occurrence.
Are there any other petitioners that wish to speak?
Yes, this is Erica Gray, again in Richmond, Virginia. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I just also wanted to add that Dominion is leading the pack, so to speak, and wanting to extend the license to 80 years. And it's very hard to have confidence that that's going to even be possible if the NRC does not demand real testing, because there's not going to be any real assurance that we can do that in a safe way. So I really appreciate the NRC to go forward and do the testing that is necessary to be able to give the assurance that there's any way possible that we should even extend the license, or if they should even be running right now, being that Dominion has just entered into their first license extension of the 20 years as they're looking to extend it again to 80 years. So please, NRC, do what's needed. Thank you.
Are there any other petitioners that wish to speak?
Hearing none. I think at this point what I'd like to do is look to the PRB members to see if they have any clarifying questions or anything that they would like to ask of the petitioners. So with that, I'd open it up.
When you gave your background discussion, you gave a lot of information on microsegregation versus macrosegregation. Could you please just give some clarification?
If I said microsegregation, that was a misstatement. It should be all macro segregation.
Thank you.
Thank you for alerting me to that.
An additional question is in the petition. It references a few times the macro segregation going through thickness and components. I didn't see any references for that. Do you have any additional information?
That is in the large associates document that we've referenced. I can provide you with page numbers for that. And that was for the Flamanville 3 analysis, as I understand it.
Oh, so you're referring to the analysis, not the actual physical component itself?
The analysis.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, this is the court reporter. And yeah, can I skip the name of the person who's asking the question?
Chris Bovanik.
Thank you.
Thank you, that's fine.
Sure.
Okay, any other NRC people here in the room have questions they'd like to ask? How about PR on the telephone? Okay. Hearing.
Make one quick comment for the record. That, again, drawing upon the PRB's alerting me to this, I just want to make a correction into the record that any reference to macro segregation should be termed, micro segregation should be retermed macro segregation.
And I just want to clarify, based on what I think we've heard as you went through your presentation, understanding that there were some questions posed by some of the petitioners on the phone, but relative to the presentation you provided, you did not provide anything in your statement today that is information that's not already included in the original petition or the supplement, correct?
Yes, and the supplement contains the large associate reference as well.
Yes, okay, good. I just wanted to clarify that. Absolutely.
Can you speak?
Sarah Kirkwood, OGC. I heard both you and several of your co-petitioners reference that you wanted the NRC to either order or to do the appropriate testing. Did you identify what that was, or just what we have it to be?
It's our understanding that testing in Europe that's underway in, I think it's certainly France, but Finland as well, and one or two other countries, has to do with ultrasonic testing of the affected components in terms of an inspection, and then taking of boat samples or ring samples from surplus material on affected components for material analysis of the actual carbon content, and to compare the content as in situ with the reference content under that qualifies the component, within safety margins.
An answer? Okay. Excellent. Well, before we turn it back over to Chris, I would turn to Lee. Is this an appropriate time to address the three questions that Mr. Gunter raised at the end of his statement? At this point in the agenda, I think he raised three questions regarding the request to delay the draft decision until after receipt of the response from the FOIA, a request for a public meeting after that.
A second meeting, as provided under 811.
And then
certainly that's your opportunity to address it again. And FOIA is not part of the petition review process, but we have accommodated petitioners that have asked for FOIAs, and we held petitions in abeyance until they have read their FOIA results and decided whether to present at the PRB again.
I mean, it is the interest of the NRC to,
this is Lee Bannock, petition manager.
It is our interest to address the concerns that you and your co-petitioners have raised in a timely manner. And we'll certainly leave this meeting with continuing evaluation, but I think on its, without committing to if it gets into a protracted period of time, we can certainly entertain and would be inclined to delay the final director's decision until such time as you have the information you requested on the FOIA. So I think the answer to that question is yes, as well as the public meeting aspect of that opportunity.
Part of our process.
The last question regarding web streaming and so forth, I know you had requested that for this meeting as well. It is the agency's view that if you want to come forward with such a request, we will evaluate it on a case-by-case basis. Yes, we have webcasted and archived those webcasts on occasion as part of the 2.206 process, so we have done it for things that have very broad interest. We'll certainly take your request into consideration consideration. I don't, at this point, we wouldn't want to commit because often those resources are difficult to coordinate and then further lengthen the process. And we believe that we can achieve transparency through just what we did today. And certainly you're welcome, as you were originally planning to do, to web stream yourself. So, we have provisions for that as well. So I would leave that open for the time being, and we'll address it as the time nears.
Can I briefly respond? I think that the significance, particularly here, that we would wish you to take special consideration of is that of the international scope to this particular issue, and that web streaming provides a broader scope of participation and transparency that could more broadly include our international concerns.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. And again, I would just say I would acknowledge and licensee. Oh, thank you. Keep me on track. Are any licensees on the phone who would like to ask a question of the petitioners?
I have one question. Yes. For answer more about it. I'm not clear about the status of the petition. Have you actually accepted it for issuance of a recommended director's decision, or are you still considering whether it's acceptable?
We have not made a decision on whether to accept or reject the petition. The only thing we have met on is was there an immediate action.
Thank you.
Before we meet to accept the petition, the petitioner has an opportunity to address the PRB and that's this today. That's Lee Bannock, petition manager.
Any other questions by licensees?
Any other staff?
Any other NRC staff on the line with questions? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to turn the meeting back over to Chris, but I just like to say I appreciate the perspective and the safety focus of the petitioners and the interests that you're trying to serve. And NRC as well is dedicated to our health and safety mission. We have been actively engaged with the international community and evaluating data and information as it's come forward. And as you acknowledged, ensured that information that we have has gotten into the hands of the licensees and, releasing the information related to where those components are in the United States. So, we continue to be actively engaged, and I'm sure some of the petitioners really want their questions answered today. But as you very rightly stated, this is an information gathering process at this point, and we will disposition those questions as we go through in the formal written decision. With that, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Ann. Before we conclude, members of the public may provide comments regarding the petition and ask questions about the 2.206 petition process. However, as I stated earlier, the purpose of the meeting is not to provide an opportunity for the petitioner or the public to question or examine the PRB regarding the merits of. So at this time, are there any members of the public that have any questions about the 2.206 petition process?
This is Mark Richter, Nuclear Energy Institute. I do have one question not related to process, but referring to the large associates report that I believe Mr. Guttner referred to. Is that publicly available?
Yes, it is publicly available, and it is linked through the petition itself. The January 24, 2017 petition has a footnote with the hyperlink.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public that wish to speak on the phone or in the room? Okay, so hearing none, Mr. Gunter, I want to thank you for taking the time to provide the NRC staff with this clarifying information on the petition that you've submitted. As we've discussed, the PRB will meet internally within a couple weeks to discuss the information and then get back to you on their initial recommendation. So before we close, does the court reporter need any additional information for the meeting transcript?
Hi, this is the court reporter. I just wanted to mention that in the beginning, about a minute in, I did lose, I dropped out of the call somehow. So there were a few minutes that I did not get. So I think you all said you're recording this?
Yes.
Okay, so if I could somehow have access to that, I don't know if this is the right time to mention it.
Absolutely. Marilee will make sure that you get a copy of that.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Other than that, I don't need anything else. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So with that, I want to thank everyone for their attention and their participation today. And the meeting is now concluded. Thank you again.